So, you finally get that promotion. You know the one, the corner office, the really impressive title, maybe even that reserved parking spot you've had your eye on. You are officially a leader. But what if I told you that by tomorrow morning you have a literal coin toss of a chance of completely bombing? Well, welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to look at the stark, unvarnished truth about leadership transitions. We are skipping the pleasantries and formal agendas today because the data we're looking at is frankly startling. It turns out moving up the corporate ladder is incredibly dangerous. The transition from an exceptional team member to a capable leader is actually one of the most perilous jumps in any professional's career. And today, we're going to unpack exactly why that happens. Okay, let's dive right into this. 50%, 1 in 2. That is the staggering failure rate for new leaders in their very first few months on the job. Literally half of all newly minted executives, managers, and directors crash and burn right out of the gate. I mean, think about the massive loss of potential and capital that represents. And here's the real kicker, the detail that truly stands out in the research. They aren't failing because they suddenly forgot how to use their laptops or lost their industry knowledge overnight. No, they aren't lacking technical competence or drive. They're failing because they step right into a series of entirely avoidable, deeply human behavioral traps. Which brings us to a really huge, glaring question. Why do highly competent, brilliant professionals fail the exact moment they're handed the reins? It's a massive case of cognitive dissonance, right? You get promoted because you're great at what you do. So why does that greatness just evaporate when you get a new title? Well, throughout this explainer, we're going to act like a mirror. We are going to uncover the specific, almost invisible ways new leaders unknowingly sabotage their own success. Prepare yourself because you're probably going to recognize some behaviors you've seen in your previous bosses, your colleagues, or, maybe even in yourself. Section 1, 3 fatal leadership mistakes and how leaders sabotage their own success.
All right, we are officially entering the danger zone. Here are the 3 behavioral missteps that act like quicksand for newly promoted executives: seeking to be liked over being respected, remaining stuck as an individual contributor, and falling victim to an ego-driven mindset. Now, these might look super simple on the surface, but they are incredibly seductive. If you want to survive those critical first few months in a leadership role, you absolutely must know what these traps look like before you step into them. These aren't just minor errors, they are foundational cracks that will bring the whole house down. They're the natural, instinctual defaults for high achievers who are suddenly thrown into the deep end of team management without a life vest. Let's break them down one by one. Think about the dynamic of a new manager scrambling to please everyone. It's totally natural. You want your team to like you, so you avoid conflict. Maybe you approve a bad idea just to keep the peace, or you softened the hard truths. But look at the reality of true leadership. It requires earning respect, making the tough, unpopular calls, maintaining your credibility, and setting a firm direction. When you prioritize popularity over respect, the result is an absolute disaster. You lose your authority, the team loses its compass, and the mission just fails. You simply cannot lead effectively if you're paralyzed by the fear of upsetting someone.
And that leads us directly to our second fatal mistake, the individual contributor trap. This one is a classic textbook error. You coded the fastest, or you sold the most, so boom, they made you the boss. But instead of actually managing, you're staying up until 2 a.m. rewriting your junior team member's report because, it's, quote, faster if you just do it yourself. That is the trap right there. You stubbornly remain stuck in your old ways of acting. You micromanage because doing the actual work feels comfortable and productive to you. But by failing to evolve into a manager, you quickly burn yourself out and severely stunt your team's autonomy and growth. Then there's the silent killer of promising careers, mindset failure. This is the third major mistake. When you get a fancy new title, it is dangerously easy to let it go straight to your head. High ego and arrogance suddenly blind the new leader. You start believing that just because you have the corner office, you magically have all the right answers. Your mindset becomes completely fixed. You stop listening to your peers, you stop learning, and you start assuming everyone else is the problem. This arrogance is a massive roadblock. It completely suffocates any potential for growth and instantly alienates the very people you're supposed to be guiding.
Section 2, the path to success. 5 strategies to transition effectively. Okay, take a deep breath. We've seen the traps, now here is the antidote. Consider this your 5-point survival guide to build a truly sustainable career. We're going to move step by step through clarifying values, developing emotional intelligence, adapting your leadership style, accepting feedback, and finally making that crucial shift to a strategist's mindset. Let's unpack the logic behind each of these steps so you can start applying them immediately. We have to start at the very foundation. Step 1. Clarify your values. Before you can successfully lead anyone else, you absolutely must know what you stand for as an individual. What are your non-negotiables? What core principles actually drive you? Because when you're a leader, you're suddenly bombarded with 100 difficult, ambiguous choices every single day. In those moments, your values act like your internal algorithm. They allow you to cut right through the noise and make aligned, confident decisions. If you don't know your core values, your leadership is going to be reactive and inconsistent. And trust me, inconsistency is the fastest way to breed distrust among your team. Next up is step 2, develop emotional intelligence. Notice the specific action words here. Listen, understand, manage. When you become a leader, your hard technical skills actually have to take a backseat to your human skills. You have to intentionally step back, stop talking, and practice deep, active listening. You need to decode the underlying personal dynamics of your team and manage the inevitable tensions that pop up when human beings work together. Emotional intelligence isn't just about being a nice person. It's about being incredibly perceptive and emotionally regulated so you can navigate complex relationships without causing a bunch of unnecessary drama. Which builds perfectly into our third strategy, continuously adapting your style. Listen, each team does not require the same management, and each situation definitely does not require the same decision. Leadership is absolutely not a one-size-fits-all endeavor. The aggressive, fast-paced style that motivated your last team, it might completely demoralize your new one. A sudden crisis requires a totally different touch than a casual brainstorming session. To survive and thrive, you have to be a chameleon, constantly reading the room and dynamically adjusting your approach to fit the specific needs of the moment and the people sitting right in front of you.
Now, this brings us to step 4, which is a pretty stark reality. Growth equals discomfort. As a new leader, you have to actively solicit and accept feedback. You have to seek it out, even when that feedback feels like it's being delivered with a sledgehammer. Remember that ego trap we talked about earlier? Well, this is exactly how you defeat it. Stepping into true leadership and undergoing that personal evolution is inherently uncomfortable. It's going to sting sometimes when a subordinate or a mentor tells you that you're doing it wrong. But if you try to insulate yourself from criticism, you completely insulate yourself from growth. You've got to lean heavily into the discomfort. And finally, we reach the critical evolution from executor to strategist. Think about the executor, buried deep in the weeds, totally obsessed with daily fire drills and checking off short-term tasks. But contrast that with the strategist. They are elevated, focused on the long-term vision, and they're orchestrating real, global impact for the organization. To succeed in the long run, you must force yourself to let go of that daily checklist that used to bring you so much comfort. You have to elevate your gaze, look over the horizon, and guide your team toward the broader, overarching goals. Which leaves us here at the very end of our journey with one really hard question. Are you acting as an executor, or are you evolving into a strategist? Seriously, think about your calendar this past week. Think about where you truly spent your mental energy. Were you simply ticking boxes, or were you actually steering the ship? The transition into leadership is absolutely fraught with hidden traps, but by clarifying your values, checking your ego, and forcing yourself out of the comfort zone of daily execution, you can beat that 50% failure rate. You can step up and become the visionary leader your team actually needs. Keep that question at the forefront of your mind as you head into your next meeting. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.